guys, that I have never presented PowerPoint on Zoom, so pray for me. How's everybody doing tonight?
I'm fine. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
And now you can't see me, right?
Well,
Oh, I'm on a different device, and I forgot what I did last night anyhow. But yeah, I got off my PC so that this thing would work, and now it's not cooperating. Uh, hmm.
Well, it's easier to hear you than to read your lips. So
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll if you can't see me or I can't see you, it's fine. I can hear you.
who was it that asked me about my green screen? I've got to tell you, the green screen story is a good one. I bought the tea thing to hang it on, okay? And I thought, well, I just got an old tablecloth and I'll put the tablecloth on there just to see how it works. And I was at, for some odd reason, Dollar General, and I was picking up a card and turned around and saw green tablecloths for $1. Okay, that's what that green screen is $1 tablecloth from Dollar General. So you can, in fact, do this for next to nothing. And when I'm not wearing green, it works just great. Unfortunately, when I am, it's just like a white wall. Okay, well, it looks like most everybody is here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and see what happens. Oops, and that happened. Tammy, can you remember how to get rid of the sidebar?
You're going to need to start playing your presentation. And it was, if you scroll your little mouse all the way up to that orange bar at the top there, Phyllis,
Mm-hmm.
and then move a little bit to the left to the sort of box with a play button within it, right there, and click on that.
Okay. All righty. Well, I'm Phyllis Cox, and I am a member at Christ Lutheran Church in Stanton. And I am an intern, a vicar actually, with Wheatland Lutheran in Buchanan, Virginia. And I'm also doing an internship at the same time with Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. And when David Drebus contacted VAIPL about doing this, they said, oh, well, Phyllis, you can do this because this is your area of expertise, and General Assembly is going on and we're going to be busy with that. So that's why I got elected to do this. And so I am going to give you a brief history of Interfaith Power and Light and Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, and then I'm going to do most of the presentation that I would do for caring for creation. Interfaith Power and Light was started by Sally Bingham, a lover of the environment and a member of the Episcopal Church, who served on the board of the nonprofit Environmental Defense Fund in the 1980s. It was through her work with that organization that she came to realize the damage that climate change, pollution, and human misuse of God's resources were doing to the earth. She tried talking about it in her church and was ignored. So when someone suggested that she take her arguments into the pulpit, she did. At age 45, after completing her undergraduate degree, seminary, and 2-year service in a supportive role in the Episcopal Church. The church told her, again, that she was too political, but that didn't stop her. She and Steve McCausland founded Episcopal Power and Light. After years of working with the organization in California, it banded together with other like-minded faith-based environmental organizations to become Interfaith Power and Light. Interfaith Power and Light created a network of IPL chapters, of which the Virginia chapter is one. Interfaith Power and Light has chapters in 40 states that work to help congregations start green teams and lobby for legislation that provides protection and remediation for environmental resources. Additionally, they work tirelessly to communicate the moral imperative of solving climate change from a theological perspective. Sally Bingham's message has been clear from the beginning, and I quote, "We need to become conscious of our behavior, follow our faith's call to be stewards of creation, and believe in the power of the Spirit to move us toward a healthy planet. The goal is simple. The means are going to involve us all." Virginia Interfaith Power and Light is a program of the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy, which is a nonprofit organization. VAIPL was originally founded in 2004 and then relaunched as a program of Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy in 2015 by a group of dedicated board members. VAIPL is a community responding to climate change by gathering, sharing, and advocating ecological wisdom through interfaith collaboration on behalf of current and future generations. Their vision is to empower all faith communities across Virginia to achieve sustainable living. And their mission is to be people of faith collaborating to grow healthy communities and advance climate justice through education, advocacy, and worship. They operate with 4 full-time staff people and 4 part-time interns, of which I am one. Lutherans are deeply concerned about the environment, globally and locally, as members of this church and as members of society. As Lutheran Christians, we embrace the vision of God's intention for creation and for humanity as creation's caregivers. But we are growing more and more concerned about climate change as we witness its impact on our health. on our health, livelihoods, and communities, especially as these exacerbate existing racial, social, and economic injustices. We see the despoiling of the environment as nothing less than the degradation of God's gracious gift of creation, as stated in the ELCA social statement, Caring for Creation, Faith, Hope, and Justice. The Creation Care Ambassadors Program is an adaptation of an Eco-America initiative, facilitated in collaboration between the ELCA and Eco-America's Blessed Tomorrow program, along with Lutherans Restoring Creation. So you may want to know how the ELCA is involved in creation care. Many ELCA ministries are active in creation care activity, and in late 2019, the ELCA established a sustainability table to synergize efforts with representation from ELCA advocacy, global mission, Lutheran disaster response, racial justice ministries, stewardship, young adult ministry, synods, congregations, and others. The table holistically pulls together the ELCA's creation care efforts, strategies, and activities to make us more effective stewards of creation. Among the goals established by the ELCA's Future Direction 2025 paper are enhancing leadership development and increasing congregational vitality. The table advances these goals and promotes justice through inclusive participation and an emphasis on sufficiency and sustainability. Trained creation care ambassadors, such as myself, have important roles in the work of the table and in the ELCA as we reclaim and act on Christians' responsibility to be stewards of creation along with all neighbors. Additional information about ELCA environmental activity, particularly through collaboration with Blessed Tomorrow, can be found in the elca.org environment area, including Moving Forward, a guide to climate action for your congregation and community, and resources can also be found at elca.org resources advocacy, such as Why Lutherans Care for Creation, Building on Our Foundations. As Martin Luther said, God is substantially present everywhere, in and through all creation, all creatures, in all their parts and all places, so that the world is full of God and he fills all. His own divine essence can be in all creatures collectively and in each one individually more profoundly, more intimately, more present than the creature is in itself. Today, we're going to touch on our faith in creation care, how climate impacts our ministries, climate solutions and benefits, what we can do in faith, and some on advocacy and your call to action. Why I am here, why I personally am here, is because I am a grandmother who is concerned about how we have neglected and misused God's resources, forgetting to care for our neighbor. I'm also here to help you make the connection between faith and climate, and also to empower you as a trusted leader to communicate and call others to action. So now I'm going to ask, since I can only see a part of you all, I am going to ask Terry Sternberg to introduce yourself, where you are as far as a congregation and location, and share a part of God's creation that brings you joy, one person, place, or creature. And then I will get you to call on the next person.
Sounds good. Thanks, Phyllis. Okay, hi, I'm Terry Sternberg. I'm with Trinity Lutheran in Pulaski, Virginia, and been here 25 years, which is the longest I've lived anywhere. And so I'm probably gonna have to say my dog Annie, who's no longer living in this temporal world. She's living with God now, and I hope to see her again. And she was my Cocker Spaniel for a month shy of 17. Well, she lived to almost be 17. I didn't get her till she was 6 weeks old. So I had her for close to 17 years. And she was my constant companion, my sweet little buddy. And I could probably share a picture of her real quickly, but I won't. But anyway, she was my good buddy. And surviving her is her feline friend, Ziggy. And now he's my buddy at home. I live alone, and pets are just great companions. So love my four-leggeds. Oh, Jim Basler, Pastor Jim.
Jim, you may want to unmute.
Try again.
There you
Can
go.
you hear me?
Got it.
Okay, great. I can't do too much with these trifocals. I try to see mostly. I'm a retired pastor that's been probably in Shenandoah County for 20 some years, and probably what I like is going on a long trip to see places I've never seen before, and do this with my wife Peggy. We're kind of in the same car most of the time, riding around. And one of the places I'd like to show her is Yosemite, because I don't think she's ever been to Yosemite. And if we're doing that, we'll probably stop at the Grand Canyon in another state, and of course wait until the snow melts to do this. But
Okay.
that's, some beautiful spots throughout the world, for that matter. And it's a shame that so many of them are getting trashed.
Okay, Jim, can you call on the next person, please?
Karen Mayer.
Hi, I'm Karen Mayer. I live in Christiansburg, and I'm a member of Our Savior Lutheran. And I live just like 4/10 of a mile from the church. So when we had a windstorm and we had an interim pastor from Roanoke, I was able to call the church and realize that they didn't have power. So I could call him and tell him that we didn't have any power. And he drove from Salem and came down, and by the time I got there, he had the entire sanctuary already set up in the fellowship hall that had windows on both sides. So I was going to say that a church is my place of creation. However, I've realized since I have moved to Christiansburg that my backyard, from which I can see the glorious sunsets, are a place that brings me great joy for God's creation.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. Call on the next person.
All right, Ann Hess, you're on.
Good evening. We're members, John and I are members at Lutheran Memorial, Lutheran Church in Blacksburg. We do have a Creation Cares Committee there, and there's a concern. One of our members is very concerned about nuclear power, and that is a clean alternative to our fossil fuel. One is concerned about starting a dialogue on that because it's cleaner than many of us think about in the past. My own personal passion is clay. Clay is formed by the erosion of mountains, and mountains are part of mountain building, that there's this wonderful cycle of creation and recreation with mountains and clay. So that's my particular passion. I am going to call on Bob.
What about me?
Oh, John, I'll let John talk. Sorry.
I just want to say that the thing that brings me so much joy is my garden. And it's just wonderful to participate in that growth and renewal each year. We'll call,
Awesome.
Mary Jo Sweeney.
Go.
Well,
Mary Jo, there
I'm-
you go.
I finally figured it out. I'm Mary Jo Sweeney. I'm a member of Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Woodstock, Virginia. And I've traveled a lot, but there's no place like Shenandoah Valley and home
Amen.
for the particularly enjoy the still having the woods around, but even in the area where I live, there's been so much growth that I no longer have any whippoorwills around, which I miss.
Mary Jo, who would you like to call on next?
I don't know who's there that I know except Jim. Give me some, I can't see too many of them, so
How about Diane Giesler?
that sounds like a winner.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
No. Okay. Well, I am a water person. I love the ocean and I love snorkeling and looking at what's under the water. And I've been fortunate to do that all over the world, really. But one thing that I've really enjoyed more recently, because we're not traveling very far, is in the back of the property where I used to live in this community. They have built a labyrinth in the woods, and it's absolutely beautiful. They collected a lot of large quartz rocks, and that's what it's lined with to delineate the pathway and the spirals. So I love just nature, but especially water. And I've seen it polluted, and I sure am reading a lot about that right now, and that concerns me.
Yes. Okay, Diane, call on somebody else.
Okay, Betsy Wilco.
Hi, I'm a member at Our Savior Lutheran in Warrenton. And I grew up, my father worked for the National Park Service. I grew up living inside of national parks. So basically I'm comfortable anywhere that's not overly populated. But most especially I love to be in the mountains. I lived on Mount Rainier till I was 8, and that's, I don't know, the mountains are home. Not where I live now, but the mountains are home. So how about Stephanie? Hootie, is that how you say it?
Huddy.
Huddy,
Yes.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's all right. I would just say it rhymes with study. I'm Stephanie Huddy. I live in northern Rockingham County, and I attend Muhlenberg and Harrisonburg. And like most of you, I think that there's so many things that just bring you joy when you look out and around or travel anywhere. But I'll just mention the birds that come out to the feeder outside my window, and just watching them, you know, you could almost watch for hours, just how they flit around and take care of themselves. So they bring me a lot of joy.
Amen.
Let me see who else I can see. Who's next? Did Bob Yates.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I'm a member at College Lutheran, and you know, like Diane, I love the ocean. We live in the woods, so I love the woods, and I just I'm just amazed by creation. Really am. So who's out there that is next? Who hadn't been? Oh, Jane, I see you. Jane Roberts.
Thank you, Bob. I also am at College Lutheran in Salem, and it's hard to choose what brings me joy because there's so many things. I've got a garden here at my house that's largely native plants that I've put in and edible plants, and I'm enjoying nurturing that. But the first thing that came to my mind was Acadia National Park in Maine. That's the place that, to me, says God, because there's no way that it could have come into creation without God doing it. Let's see. I'm going to call on, let's see, Georgia Vince. Is Georgia there? Maybe not. How about Kathy Thompson?
Thanks. Kathy Thompson. I'm from Muhlenberg Lutheran Church in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And like some of the rest of you who mentioned national parks, I love national and state parks. And I too have been to Acadia National Park. The one closest to me is the Shenandoah National Park, so I get to visit that from time to time. But my favorite is Glacier National Park in Montana. And that is just beautiful. When I went there, it was 2003, and they were predicting that the glaciers would all be gone by 2030. So they are melting. Cindy Henry.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I'm Cindy Henry from Gravel Springs Lutheran Church. We're still in Virginia, but it's real close to West Virginia. My go-to spot is a sunrise, especially the ones in Nags Head. But it's a brand new day, a new beginning, and that is what brings me so much joy and hope for the future. And I can't really see the rest of the screen. I don't know who hasn't been called on, so I will leave that to Phyllis to pick the next one.
Okay. I'll tell you, if we keep on this way, I'm not going to have any presentation time. So I'm going to quickly go through. I want you all to think about this and hold your hand up as you will. What is causing our changing climate? Do you think, if you think it's one of these, hold your hand up. Mostly nature? Mostly humans? Both? I don't know.
Oh, well, yeah, humans too. Sure.
Burning fossil fuels is mostly okay for people and nature, or mostly unhealthy for people and nature? Okay, show of hands for number 3. How concerned are you about climate change? A lot? Moderate? A little? Not at all. Can I make a difference? Yes? No? Or I don't know. Americans can at times feel isolated in their concern because what you think personally and what you think other people around you think are sometimes different. In a 2019 survey by Eco America, 74% of Americans are concerned about climate. 40% are, 45% are very concerned. If you add in the number who are a little concerned, that's 88% are concerned about climate change. But only 59% of Americans believe that others around them are concerned about climate change. This means there are a whole lot of Americans who feel alone in their concern. And we can, through participating in this program and talking about, but we can lead. We have a responsibility to be good stewards and to make moral choices for the good of all creation, and to live out our faith by working toward the health of our environment. So what exactly is happening in this picture? What is happening to our climate? A picture can say 1,000 words. CO2 is the primary driver of our changing climate, although there are other greenhouse gases that contribute. This animation from NASA illustrates how our planet has warmed since 1880. This rapid, unprecedented change threatens the balance of life on Earth.
I think you need to share your screen.
Oh, okay, thank you. Need to. Okay. And I'll hope that I am on the right screen now. The hottest year on record was 2016, with 2017
It didn't work
coming
yet.
not. Okay.
There.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank
there you
you
go.
for telling me that. The hottest year on record was 2016, with 2017 coming in as the second hottest year, and 2018 the fourth hottest year since 1880. Okay. As you can see, this is a chart of billion-dollar weather events from 1980 to 2017. In 2017, the U.S. experienced a historic year of weather and climate disasters. 16 separate billion-dollar disaster events, tying 2011 for the record number of U.S. billion-dollar disasters for an entire calendar year. So what are the drivers of that? 29%, the largest amount, is from transportation in the United States, from greenhouse gas emissions, which come from mainly burning fossil fuel for cars, trucks, ships, trains, and planes. Over 90% of the fuel used for transportation is petroleum-based, primarily gasoline and diesel. The second largest share is electricity production. Next comes industry, which includes burning fossil fuels for energy and greenhouse gas emissions from chemical reactions that produce goods from raw materials. Commercial and residential emissions are the next, and the last is agriculture. Those emissions come from livestock like cows, agricultural soils, and rice production. However, land areas can also act as a sink to absorb CO2 from the atmosphere and offset emissions. As the climate changes, wildfire frequency increases and the intensity also increases. In the 1970s, wildfire season was typically under 5 months. As of 2015, the wildfire season lasts more than 8 months. Looking at wildfires that occurred between 1970 and 1986, as compared to 1986 and 2003, wildfires are occurring nearly 4 times more often, burning 6 times the land area and lasting almost 5 times as long. As climate changes, droughts become more intense. Dry soil increases the number of particulates that are suspended in the air. The dry, dusty conditions associated with drought can also lead to infectious disease such as valley fever. Groundwater is susceptible as contaminants in the groundwater become more concentrated with less water available to dilute them. Additionally, drought can lead to higher than normal levels of toxins in fish, as low water levels can result in an increase in the concentration of toxic chemicals in a particular river. In turn, humans and other animals eating those fish become exposed to those concentrated toxins, which can cause illness. Air quality disproportionately impacts vulnerable populations. The pollution causing this warming disproportionately impacts vulnerable populations, including the young, the old, those with chronic illness, minorities, and the poor. Children who grow up in polluted areas face the increased risk of having underdeveloped lungs, which may never recover to their full capacity. The average drop in lung function was 20% below what was expected for the child's age, similar to the impact of growing up in a home with parents who smoked. Ocean warming is another consideration when we're talking about climate change. Global warming has a ripple effect across the earth. For example, let's look at the impacts that it has on oceans. The rate of ocean warming has nearly doubled since 1992, compared with the previous 3 decades. The warming oceans and increasing acidity threaten not only coral reefs, but also marine life, such as which humans depend on. Oceans have provided a major buffer for a changing climate, absorbing up to 90% of the heat around us. But warmer oceans can contribute to more intense storms. It also causes our sea levels to rise, threatening our coastlines and the communities that reside on them. This graphic is about historical changes in rainfall in the Southeast specifically. And as you can see, heat, flooding, and diseases increase risks to infrastructure and health in urban areas, such as on the coastline in the area, the Virginia Beach, Norfolk area. Heavy rains and sea level rise endanger coastal tourism and industry, and extreme heat impacts agriculture, hurting rural communities. The impacts that climate change has on our ministries are huge. As people of faith, we are motivated to act on all sorts of issues by our love for God, by our love for neighbors, and all of God's creation. Climate change is a global phenomenon which affects almost every one of our concerns. If you care about people having access to safe drinking water, having enough healthy food to eat, if you are worried about refugees and other migrants, if you are concerned about increasing violence and war, then you care about climate change. If you are concerned about poverty, racial justice, women and children, you care about climate change. If you care about health, well-being, and prosperity, you care about climate change. Severe weather causes injuries, fatalities, and illness. Changing seasonal weather exacerbates cardiopulmonary conditions, disease, allergies, malnutrition, dehydration, and many more categories of morbidity. And longer-term climate change impacts all of the above. All of these health impacts interconnect with mental health. There are links between physical health, mental health, and community mental health, and they all impact each other. We know that climate change exacerbates existing inequities, much like we're seeing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Demographics, socioeconomic status, and physical location can impact climate vulnerability. These impacts affect our economy as well. Neighborhoods disappear, businesses go bankrupt. Farmers find it more difficult to predict growing seasons, and the impacts of heat and flooding may cause crop yields to decline. Economies that rely on seasonal tourism lose business when natural disasters hit. Property values in areas expected to see increases in wildfires, hurricanes, and flooding see decreasing property values. And the tax base changes as people and businesses move. Evacuees will move miles and miles away. After Hurricane Katrina, 15,000 people fled to Columbia, South Carolina, which is almost 700 miles away, and most of them still are there. But there are solutions, and we can benefit from those solutions. For instance, clean energy. This slide shows solar capacity growing while prices drop. A second solution is clean energy. Clean energy, similar to wind energy, as one of the types of clean energy, tripled since 2008. Energy efficiency can reduce our impact on climate change by 30%. And there's so many different options, from LED lighting to replacing windows. And all of these things are available through Blessed Tomorrow and their programs that they can use in your various congregations and establishing green teams. Another solution is efficient transportation, like public transit, electric cars, for shipping and freight, ride sharing, bike sharing, and more active transportation. Another solution is natural, by planting more trees and increasing restoration of trees. Nature has the potential to remove 21% of the nation's carbon pollution, equivalent to removing emissions from all cars and trucks on the road, and then some. So the benefits are improved air quality and health, creating local jobs, improving energy security, cutting energy imports, cutting fuel bills, cutting traffic jams, increasing water quality, sustaining biodiversity, and protecting our communities from extreme weather. So what can we do in faith? There are 3 ways that we care for creation: in mitigation or stewardship, in adaptation or creating refuge, and in advocacy or giving witness to our efforts to care for creation. We can be thankful for the goodness of God in creation. We can pray for guidance. We can find support in and talk with your congregation. You can assemble a creation care team. You can plan using the Blessed Tomorrow Moving Forward Guide, and you can get started on visible, inexpensive, and easy changes. You can roll the savings forward and make a public congregational commitment and communicate that and build on the success. I have a list that's available of resources for creation stewardship. And the last slide, or next to the last slide, I would encourage you to take action. Preach, teach, share, reduce energy use and move to clean energy sources. Sign on to a letter supporting climate solutions. Submit an op-ed or letter to the editor, to a newspaper or a periodical. Call, write, or visit your elected officials. Publish a blog post or a newsletter article. Attend candidate forums and let your candidates know how you feel. Participate in advocacy action and vote your faith and your climate values. So for the last 5 minutes, let's just talk about what you've learned, what surprised you, what resonated with you, and I'll just open it up and whoever wants to talk can, because I need to get a drink of tea. Are you all asleep?
No, we're just tired. That's all. I'm tired.
I'm there.
Well, you certainly gave us plenty to chew on. Thank you very much, Phyllis.
You're very welcome, Terry.
And I think a lot of times that what resonated with me was that sort of that sense of individual responsibility, feeling kind of like it's a drop in the bucket kind of thing. So one thing I will say is that Pulaski County has a lot of rural, beautiful farmland, and the Board of Supervisors has approved solar farms coming in. And one of our members of our church has thought about, and I'm not sure where they've landed on this thing, but they have somebody wanting to lease for 40 years, several hundred acres to put solar panels. The problem is that you trade off the aesthetic beauty of looking out over your beautiful farmland that's been passed through several generations in this family, and it's going to give way from cattle grazing on the farmland to big metal reflective solar panels, and the aesthetics then really change a lot when you drive through the Midwest and you see the farms covered up, with clean renewable power of wind turbines. It's weird, you drive through and you see these big blades just rotating, and I've driven through enough of Indiana and stuff to see them, and I love it because I think we need to go the way of clean renewable energy, but it's going to make a big difference in what our earth looks like, going away from nature and natural landscapes. So, but I think we're really responsible, and I think, we need to do the best we can in all the ways that you said, the call to action.
Can I comment on that a little bit, Terry? I just had a lecture on that. I teach environmental building systems at Virginia Tech to architects. So number one, the whole thing about conservation and efficiency, that's the first thing we all need to do.
Conservation.
That's more energy at all. That's using less energy. The less energy we need, the better off we are in general. Having said that, went to a really, actually I had a guest speaker in my class, and he was talking about how people in Iowa, for example, have totally embraced wind turbines and PV, also photovoltaics. And there is a big impact visually. If you think about, 200 years ago,
Yeah.
we didn't have transmission towers through our farms either. And now
Yeah.
there's transmission towers. We don't even see them because we know they're necessary, right? So if we just recalibrate our thinking maybe and I think about all the Lutherans in Iowa, right? And, they're just embracing this as an intelligent, productive thing to do with their land. And you mentioned the cows, and there's actually something called agrovoltaics where you can use PV to shade the cows because cows like to be in the sun. So, I don't live on a farm. I grew up in the suburbs, so I'm already polluted, right? But I would submit to you rural folk that maybe there's something here that if we look at our friends out who've embraced this, it's just a cultural shift that we already made with electricity 200 years ago, and suddenly our electricity is more visible again. But maybe we can get used to it.
Well, I have a funny feeling that there are a lot of economics too that benefit these farmers. This guy that I'm talking about stands to gain $250,000 a year in income for leasing his land. $250,000 he would gain from doing this. And I'm sure the farmers are getting a lot through the lease of their land for wind turbines. So there's a lot of payoff. It's lucrative to go clean and green for a lot of these landowners. So, and again, he just has to decide whether he wants to look out over solar panels or look at the land, so a lot of trade-offs, but I like that conserve and efficiency. And by the way, Volvo large truck plant in Dublin, our county, is making electric semi trailer trucks.
Awesome.
Yeah. For $1.1 million, they're selling them to California for now under a grant that California got. But
Wow.
electric semi trailers are coming up. So good stuff.
I'd like to just comment on a really major issue that it's all of us, I think, are aware of the problems with recycling materials. And it's become more and more difficult to do that because the recycling streams that were available a few years ago aren't available now. And I've been reading material that suggests that although there are recycling streams out there, the stuff ends up in landfills anyway, even though it's somewhat separated. So this issue, and I don't know what the solutions are. The packaging industry is just overwhelmingly polluting, I think is the right word, our environment because of, you can't get anything except fresh vegetables and fruits that aren't somehow encased in plastic. And I know that there's a number of industries trying to explore how you do recycle plastics. But again, the petroleum industry is very oppositional to this because as we demand less fuel oil and use of fossil fuels, the plastics industry drives that use of oils for those products. And so there's that conflict that's always been present with these major industries that are based on fossil sources of energy and chemicals. So being aware of how we can move our thinking toward recycling and in some way impact the economy of packaging.
Use more pottery.
Well, and support local farmers markets. We can just go with your own cloth bags and put your fruits and vegetables in it, and you avoid all that packaging.
Amen.
I think advocacy is really important too. Having lived in a home that was completely solar powered for about 15 years, we did eventually bring in some electricity, but by then we were able to do the net metering, where what we didn't use, we could sell back. But I think there should be more incentives for people to do that. It's very efficient, it's very clean, it's very quiet. I'd be all for it for everybody to experience, but it's, unless there's that incentive there, there's considerable startup costs to do it. But if you're gonna kind of make that all back over time.
There is an organization called Revolve, RE-VOLV, and it the gentleman who started the company gathered together enough capital to put solar panels on a nonprofit organization's building. And from that organization helped him generate the interest in funding the next one. And so it's one nonprofit after another that they're solarizing with capital that is from that very first installation. Really cool organization.
Related to incentivization, I don't know if you noticed on that graphic you had with regard to amount of clean energy or solar power. I'm not sure which it was, but how it flattened off after 2016. And that accompanies a real lack of investment by government in these clean energies. So our public policy at the national level is so important.
It is, absolutely. Thank you all.
But we could make a huge difference if we could do it at the state level too. My son lives in Massachusetts, and there is considerably more regulation about what they can buy and do, and that's helpful.
Thank you all so much.